Labeling theory, a theory of crime. Labeling theory is the theory of how the self-identity and behavior of individuals may be determined or influenced by the terms used to describe or classify them. Labeling theory is one of the most important approaches to understanding deviant and criminal behavior. It stems from the work of W.I. Thomas in 1928. W.I. Thomas wrote, "If men define situations as real, they are real in their consequences." Labeling theory begins with the assumption that no act is inherently criminal. Definitions of criminality are established by the people in power through laws and the interpretation of those laws by police, courts, and correctional institutions. Deviance is therefore not a set of characteristics of individuals or groups, but rather it is a process of how deviance and non-deviance interact and how criminality is being interpreted. Who is deviant? According to labeling theory, some people are considered deviant and some are not. Police, court officials, experts, school authorities, and anyone who represents the force of law are the ones who label people. By applying labels to people and deciding who is deviant and who is not, these people are reinforcing the power structure of society. Many of the rules that define deviance and the context in which deviant behavior is labeled as deviant are framed by wealthy for the poor, men for the women, older people for younger people, and ethnic minorities for minority groups. The more powerful and dominant groups in society create and apply deviant labels to the subordinate groups. For example, many children engage in activities such as breaking windows, stealing fruit from other people's trees, climbing into other people's yards, or playing hooky from school. In wealthy neighborhoods, these acts may be regarded by parents, teachers, and police as innocent aspects of the process of growing up. In poorer areas, on the other hand, these same activities might be seen as tendencies towards juvenile delinquency. What happens after being labeled? Once a person is labeled as deviant, it is extremely difficult to remove that label. The deviant person becomes stigmatized as a criminal or deviant and is likely to be considered and treated as untrustworthy by others. The deviant individual is then likely to accept the label that has been attached, seeing himself or herself as deviant, and act in a way that fulfills the expectations of that label. Even if the labeled individual does not commit any further deviant acts than the one that caused them to be labeled, getting rid of that label can be very hard and time-consuming. For example, it is usually very difficult for a convicted criminal to find employment after release from prison because of their label as an ex-criminal. They have been formally and publicly labeled a wrongdoer and are treated with suspicion, likely for the remainder of their lives. Labeling theory in a movie and book. The book and movie The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton was about one side of town called the Greasers, who were lower class, and the Socs, who were upper class. Johnny Cade was told by society that since he is a greaser, he is no good and a bad kid. And according to labeling theory, that is why he ended up killing a Soc, because society labeled him as a bad kid before he did anything wrong. This theory states that deviants are those people who are successfully labeled as deviant by others. One could argue that the Socs are just as deviant as the Greasers, but since the Socs come from upper-class families, they are not labeled as troublemakers by the local police force. Every time we see the Socs in the film, they are drinking or drunk, and at not one instance in the film are the Greasers under the influence of any substance. Yet it is made clear that if the police ever pick up a greaser, they will be arrested and put in jail. This unfair advantage that the Socs have over the Greases is a good example of labeling theory.